My siblings divided my inheritance at the funeral while I watched from the back of the church. I am Sarah Mae Whitmore, 28 years old, and this is the story of how I discovered that my own family had been stealing from me for 15 years. If you've ever felt betrayed by people you should trust, leave a like on this video. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know if there are still honest people out there in the world. It was a cold November morning in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The wind cut like a blade through the golden fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. I was sitting in the last row of Mount Olive Baptist Church, wearing a simple black dress I had bought at the local thrift store. My wide-brimmed hat hid part of my face, and that was exactly how I wanted it. Outside, the cemetery awaited with an open grave. Inside the church, my father's mahogany coffin, William Big Bill Whitmore, lay surrounded by expensive flower wreaths that I knew my brothers hadn't paid for. People whispered about how Big Bill had been the largest cattle rancher in the county, how his land stretched over thousands of acres, how the oil wells on his property had made him one of the richest men in Oklahoma. What they didn't know was that I was there, watching it all. "Dear brothers and sisters," Pastor Jenkins began, his deep voice echoing through the wooden walls of the old church, "we are here to celebrate the life of William Whitmore, a man who built an empire with his own hands, who raised a strong family, and left a legacy that will last for generations." I almost laughed out loud. Legacy. If he only knew the truth. In the front row, my 3 older brothers sat like kings on their thrones. Jake, the oldest at 35, adjusting his collar of a shirt that probably cost more than my 3-month salary. Beside him, Tommy, 32, constantly checking the gold watch on his wrist, the same watch that was supposed to be mine, according to the original I found hidden in the attic of the barn. And then there was Michael, 30, who couldn't stop fiddling with the papers in his suit pocket. Papers that I suspected were very interesting. Big Bill leaves 3 sons to carry on his legacy, Pastor Jenkins continued, and my heart tightened when he didn't mention my name. Jake, Tommy, and Michael Whitmore, who will surely honor their father's memory. 3 sons. As if I never existed. I remember when I was a child, running through the endless fields of the Whitmore farm, my father teaching me how to ride, rope cattle, and distinguish the sound of a productive well. "You have the blood of this land in your veins, Sarah Mae," he used to say, lifting me onto his shoulders so I could see beyond the fence. "One day, all of this will be yours too." Lies. All lies. Pastor Jenkins continued with the sermon, but I wasn't paying attention. My eyes were fixed on my brothers, observing every movement, every glance they exchanged. Jake whispered something into Tommy's ear, who nodded gravely. Michael checked the papers in his pocket once again. Then it happened. Jake stood up during a pause in the sermon and cleared his throat. "Pastor Jenkins, if I may, I'd like to say a few words about our father and about the future of the Whitmore farm." The pastor nodded, surprised but respectful. "Of course, Jake." "Please." Jake walked confidently to the pulpit, the same confident stride he always had. He looked out at the congregation, farmers, merchants, people who had known our father all his life, and smiled in a way that gave me chills. "My father was a visionary," Jake began, his voice carrying through the quiet church. "He knew that land needs strong hands to take care of it. That's why, in his will, he made it very clear how he wanted his possessions divided." My blood ran cold. I knew what was coming next. The Whitmore farm, with its 15,000 acres, the Angus cattle herds, and the rights to the oil wells, will be divided equally between me, Tommy, and Michael, Jake announced, as if he were reading a weather report. Dad trusted us to keep his dream alive. Whispers spread through the church. I saw several people exchange confused glances. Mrs. Henderson, who had been my mother's friend, frowned deeply. Old Pete Morrison, who had worked for my father for 40 years, shook his head as if something didn't make sense. Tommy stood up and joined his brother. "It's a responsibility we don't take lightly," he said, placing his hand on his heart in a theatrical manner. "We know that Dad will be proud seeing us take good care of everything he built." Michael was the last to join his brothers at the pulpit. He pulled the papers from his pocket, papers that I was now sure were a forged version of the will. "We have all the legal documents here," he said, waving the papers in the air. "Everything is in order, just as Dad wanted." I was gripping the church pews so tightly that my fingers were turning white. How dare they? How had they managed to forge a will and announce it publicly, at our father's own funeral? But what hurt me most wasn't even the blatant robbery. It was the fact that they were doing it as if I had never existed. As if the 15 years I spent away, working in 2 different cities, sending money home when they said the farm was in trouble, as if none of that had mattered. If you're wondering why I didn't stand up in that moment to confront them, why I didn't shout the truth right there in front of everyone, I understand your curiosity. Leave a comment telling me what you would have done in that situation. Would you have had more courage than I did? The truth is, I had a plan. A plan that had been 15 years in the making. Jake concluded his speech with a line that made my stomach turn. "Dad always said that family is sacred. The 3 of us will honor that tradition." Sacred family. They had no idea what family truly meant. As they walked down from the pulpit, smiling and satisfied with themselves, I remained seated in the last row, watching. Watching and planning. Because there were a few things my dear brothers didn't know about their inheritance. First, I had found the real will 6 months ago when I secretly returned to Oklahoma. The document was hidden in my father's office, in the barn, inside a safety box he thought no one else knew about. In that real will, the farm was divided equally between the 4 children. That's right, 4. I was included. Second, during the 15 years I spent away, I wasn't just working anywhere. I was working for one of the largest oil companies in Texas, learning all about mineral rights, leasing contracts, and, most importantly, how to identify when those contracts were fraudulent. And third, this is the part that was really going to hurt them, I had discovered that the oil wells on the Whitmore farm were producing 3 times more than they were reporting. Someone was diverting a fortune, and I had documents to prove it. The funeral ended with everyone heading toward the cemetery. I waited until the church had almost emptied before I stood up. I walked slowly to the front, where my father's coffin still rested. "Hey, Dad," I whispered, placing my hand on the cold wood. "I'm sorry for everything that happened. But I promise you one thing, I'll get justice. For both of us." Outside, I heard Jake shouting orders to the coffin bearers, that authoritative voice he always used with me when we were kids. "Careful. That coffin cost $5,000. $5,000. With money that wasn't his." I walked to the church door and paused in the shadow, watching my brothers organize the funeral procession. They were so busy feeling important, greeting people as if they were the new lords of the county, that they didn't even notice the woman in the black dress and hat watching them from a distance. It was then that I made my final decision. I wasn't just going to expose the truth. I was going to completely destroy the castle of lies they had built. And I was going to start that very night. Because there was one thing they really didn't know, I hadn't come back to Oklahoma alone. I had brought some very interesting friends from Texas. Friends with expertise in fraud investigations and property rights. The war was just beginning. If you want to know how Sarah May gets back at her brothers and what explosive secrets she uncovered about the farm, leave a like and a comment. The next chapter will show her plan in action. Don't miss it! It was midnight when I found the accounting books hidden in the barn, and what I saw made me realize that the betrayal was much worse than I imagined. If you've been following my story from the first chapter, you know that my brothers just stole my inheritance at my father's own funeral. If this is your first time here, I recommend watching the previous video to catch up. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, this story is just beginning to heat up. It was 2 a.m. when I parked my 1995 red Ford pickup on the dirt road leading to the back of the Whitmore property. The same pickup I had bought with my first paycheck in Texas, the same one my brothers always mocked when I was younger. Sarah May and her old junk, Jake used to say. Well, that old junk had taken me far. The November moon lit the fields stretching for miles. On the horizon, I could see the faint lights of the oil derricks pumping tirelessly, extracting black gold from the land my great-grandfather had bought for next to nothing in 1889 during the Oklahoma land rush. Land that was now worth millions. I took a deep breath of the cold morning air, smelling the familiar scent of dry grass and diesel fuel. The smell of home. The smell of memories I thought I had buried forever. You're probably wondering why I didn't come back home earlier, why I waited until the funeral to show up. The answer is simple. I didn't know my father had died until a week later. My brothers never contacted me. I found out through an ad in the Tulsa World that a coworker saw and showed me. Hey, Sarah, isn't that your last name? Imagine the pain. Losing your father and finding out that your own family couldn't even bother to let you know. I walked through the tall grass toward the main barn, that massive red wooden structure my father had built with his own hands in the 80s. I knew every board, every beam, every dark corner where I used to hide when I was a child and my older brothers were being particularly cruel. The barn door was locked, but I knew where Dad hid the spare key. Under the third stone to the right of the gate, exactly where it had always been. Some things never change. The barn was as dark as pitch. I turned on the flashlight of my phone and walked to the back, where my father's makeshift office was. An old wooden desk, a worn leather chair, and 3 metal files containing the entire financial history of the Whitmore farm. But that wasn't what I was looking for that night. I headed to the stairs leading to the mezzanine, where the hay bales were stored. But hidden behind the bales, there was a small safe that my father thought only he knew about. He didn't know that I had discovered its existence when I was 12, hiding it from Jake after he gave me a black eye for talking too much during dinner. The safe was still there. And I still remembered the combination, 18 to 89, the year of the Oklahoma land rush. Inside the safe, I found exactly what I was expecting, the Rayall will, dated just 6 months before Dad's death. My fingers trembled as I read the words that changed everything. I leave the Whitmore farm, including all the land, cattle, equipment, and mineral rights, to be divided equally among my 4 children, Jake, Tommy, Michael, and Sarah May Whitmore. 4 children. Not 3. But there was more. Much more. I kept rummaging through the safe and found a thick folder full of papers. Contracts. Receipts. And a handwritten letter from my father addressed to me. Folks, when I read that letter, I cried. I cried from anger, from sadness, from relief. If you've ever lost a father, you know what it's like to receive a final message from him. Leave a like if this part touched you too. My dear Sarah May, if you are reading this, it's because something has happened to me and your brothers are trying to steal what is rightfully yours. I've always known they were jealous of you, always knew they saw you as a threat. That's why I hid this real will. But there's something even they don't know. Something that will shock you too. The oil wells on our land are producing 3 times what they think. For the last 5 years, I've had a secret partnership with Horizon Oil Company. They've been paying royalties directly into a bank account I opened in your name. Sarah May, you're already rich. Richer than your brothers ever dreamed of being. The account papers are at the Bank of Tulsa, downtown branch, safe deposit box number 247. The key is taped under the drawer of my desk here in the barn. Your father who always loved you. William Whitmore. I had to sit on the floor from the emotion. My father had not only included me in the inheritance, he had protected me, even after death. I ran to his desk and, with trembling hands, found the key exactly where he said it would be. A small golden key taped under the middle drawer. But as I was leaving the barn, I heard the sound of tires on the gravel road. Headlights approaching. Shit! I quickly turned off the flashlight and hid behind an old tractor. The car stopped in front of the barn, and 2 doors slammed. Male voices. Are you sure you saw a light here? It was Tommy's voice. I'm sure, replied Michael. Someone's been messing around in the barn. My heart raced. How did they know I was there? It could just be some bum looking for a place to sleep, said Tommy. You know how it is after funerals, always strange people showing up on the property. Or it could be Sarah May, said Michael, and my blood ran cold. Silence. Then Tommy's voice, lower and more threatening, impossible. Sarah May doesn't have the guts to show up here. She knows she's not welcome. She'd better check anyway, insisted Michael. You know what happens if she finds out about. Shut up, Tommy interrupted him sharply. Don't talk about that out here. They knew. They knew there were secrets hidden. I heard their footsteps approaching the barn door. I was trapped. If they entered, they would definitely find me. That's when I had a desperate idea. I knew the barn like the back of my hand. There was a back door that led to the horse pasture. If I could get there quietly, I could escape through the field and return to my pickup through another path. I crawled carefully between the farm equipment, each step calculated to avoid making noise. Behind me, I heard the barn door open. Turn on the light, Tommy ordered. There's no power, replied Michael. Jake turned off the electricity yesterday to save. Lucky me. The darkness was my ally. I continued crawling until I reached the back door. But just as I was about to open it, I heard Michael speaking. Tommy, look here. The safe box is open. My blood ran cold. What do you mean by open? Tommy's voice was tense. Someone's been messing around. The safe is empty. Silence. Then, a sound of something being thrown to the ground with force. Son of a bitch! Tommy yelled. She's been here. Sarah May's been here. How did she know about the safe? Michael sounded desperate. It doesn't matter how. What matters is that now she has the real will. The real will. They knew the document they had shown at the funeral was fake. Calm down, Tommy said, but I could hear the panic in his voice. She can't prove anything just with the will. She would need more evidence. What if she finds out about the bank account? She won't find out. How the hell would she know about that? I smiled in the dark. If they only knew I already had the key to the bank safe pressed in my hand. We have to find her, Michael said. We need to find Sarah May before she ruins everything. Don't worry, Tommy replied, and the tone of his voice sent chills down my spine. I know exactly where she's staying. And this time, we're going to have a very serious conversation with our little sister. Waiting outside was Jake. I heard him talking on the phone. Yes, she's back. No, we haven't talked to her yet. I understand. Yes, sir, we'll take care of this before it becomes a problem. Who the hell was Jake talking to at this time of night? I managed to escape through the pasture and return to my pickup without being seen. But driving back to the motel where I was staying, one thing became very clear: my brothers weren't just thieves. They were involved in something much bigger and far more dangerous. And now they knew I was back. The question that kept echoing in my mind was, did I have enough time to uncover the whole truth before they found me? Leave your theories in the comments. Do you think Sarah Mae is in danger? And who do you think was on the other end of the line when Jake was talking on the phone? The next chapter will show what happened when Sarah Mae went to the bank in the morning. And I can give you a hint: the amount of money she found in the secret account will leave you speechless. Don't miss the next chapter. The twist is coming, and Sarah Mae will uncover secrets that will change everything. At the bank, I found out I'd been a millionaire for 5 years, and my brothers knew all along. Folks, if you've been following this story from the beginning, you know I'm about to find out just how much money my father secretly left for me. If you're just catching up, watch the previous chapters because this revelation will make a lot more sense. And leave a like if you're as excited as I was in that moment. It was 7 a.m. on a cold Tuesday when I parked in front of the Bank of Tulsa, downtown. The brick building looked imposing, with its marble columns and the flags of Oklahoma and the United States fluttering in the chilly wind. I was wearing my best business suit, a gray set I had bought for important meetings in Texas, but even so, I felt small walking toward the main entrance. Inside the bank, the marble floor echoed with the sound of my shoes. The manager, Mr. Patterson, was a man in his 60s with graying hair and gold-rimmed glasses. When I showed him the key and explained who I was, I saw his expression change completely. "Sarah Mae Whitmore?" he asked, adjusting his glasses as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "My God, miss, we've been waiting for you for a long time." "Waiting for me?" This was strange. "Your father left very specific instructions," Mr. Patterson continued, leading me down a hallway to the vault area. "He said that only you could access this account, and only with this specific key." We reached a small, quiet room, where there was a table and 2 chairs. Mr. Patterson opened safe deposit box number 247 and took out a thick folder and a sealed envelope. "Before we open the documents," he said, sitting across from me, "I need to inform you of the current balance of the account." My heart was racing. How much is in the account?" Mr. Patterson checked some papers and looked at me with a serious expression. "Miss Whitmore, your checking account has a balance of $2,347,812. I couldn't speak for a moment. 2 million? What? And that doesn't include the investments your father made in your name," the manager continued. "Shares of Horizon Oil Company, certificates of deposit, and an investment in oil funds that are currently worth about $800,000. More than $3 million. I had been a millionaire for 5 years and didn't even know it. How is this possible?" I managed to ask, still in shock. "The oil royalties, miss. Your father had a special deal with Horizon Oil Company. They've been paying 50% of the royalties directly into this account, starting 5 years ago. Your family has been receiving the other half." 5 years. I had been a millionaire for 5 years, and my brothers knew about it. It was at that moment that everything started to make sense. The strange phone calls they made when I visited the farm. The way they always changed the subject when I asked about the property finances. Their insistence that I build my own life away from Oklahoma. They knew. They had always known. "Mr. Patterson," I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, "who else knew about this account?" The manager hesitated. "Well, your father asked for absolute confidentiality, but your brothers came here last week, right after the funeral. They wanted information about the account." "And you gave it to them?" "Of course not," he replied quickly. "Your father's instructions were very clear. Only you could access this account. But they insisted a lot. They even brought a lawyer. A lawyer. That explained the mysterious phone call Jake had made the night before. I opened the envelope my father had left. Inside, there was a longer and more detailed letter than the one I had found in the barn. My dear Sarah May, if you're reading this at the bank, it's because you managed to find the first letter and the key. I'm proud of your courage. I need to tell you the truth about why I sent you away from Oklahoma 15 years ago. It wasn't because I wanted you to build your own life. It was because I found out that your brothers were planning a scheme to steal your part of the inheritance. Jake, Tommy, and Michael have always been jealous of you because you're the smartest one in the family. When you turned 18, they started talking about how to protect the farm from a little girl who doesn't understand business. I pretended to agree with them, but secretly, I started protecting your rights. This bank account is just the beginning. In the folder that Mr. Patterson will give you, you'll find copies of all the fraudulent transactions your brothers have made over the past 5 years. They've been selling cattle using forged documents, embezzling money from the oil royalties, and even selling small plots of land without legal authorization. All of this could send them to prison. But Sarah May, be careful. Your brothers have a partner in this scheme. Someone important in the city, someone with the power to cover up their crimes. That's why I waited until now to reveal the truth. I needed enough evidence to protect you. Use this information wisely, my daughter. With eternal love, Dad. An important partner in the city. Who could it be? Mr. Patterson handed me the folder, which was heavy with hundreds of documents. Your father had been bringing these papers here for years, he explained. He always said they were to protect you from something. I started flipping through the documents, and what I saw made me angry. Much angrier than sad. Receipts for cattle sales with forged signatures. Falsified land lease contracts. And worst of all, bank transfers showing that my brothers had stolen more than $400,000 from the oil royalties over the years. $400,000 that should have been split with me. Mr. Patterson, I asked, do you know of any honest lawyers in this town? Anyone who doesn't have ties to my family? He thought for a moment. Mrs. Rebecca Martinez just moved here from Oklahoma City. She specializes in fraud and financial crimes. Her office is right here on Main Street. Perfect. I was putting the documents in my bag when my phone rang. Unknown number. Sarah May Whitmore? The voice was feminine, nervous. Yes, who's speaking? My name is Jennifer Morrison. I work at the city clerk's office. I need to speak with you urgently. Morrison. That surname sounded familiar. Are you related to Pete Morrison? He's my grandfather. Listen, I can't talk for long, but I need to warn you about something. Your brothers filed a new deed for the farm yesterday morning. They transferred the entire property to a company called Whitmore Holdings, LLC. My blood ran cold. How did they manage to do that? With documents that seem legal, but I think they're forged. And Sarah May, the lawyer who represented them, was the city's public prosecutor, Richard Clayton. The public prosecutor. He was the partner my father had mentioned in the letter. Jennifer, thank you so much for warning me. This must have been very risky for you. My grandfather always said your father was an honest man. He would be furious knowing what's going on. I hung up the phone with shaking hands. Now I understood the whole scheme. My brothers weren't just stealing my inheritance, they were using the public prosecutor to legalize the theft. But they didn't know one important thing. I had all the original documents proving that the property was still in my father's name when he died. And I had $3 million to fight them. I left the bank determined to find lawyer Rebecca Martinez immediately. But as I was walking toward my car, I saw something that made me stop dead in my tracks. Across the street, leaning against the wall of the bank as if waiting for me, was Jake. He saw me the moment I saw him and smiled. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had finally found its prey. He started crossing the street toward me, and I realized I was completely alone on Main Street that cold November morning. "Hey, little sister," Jake shouted, still a safe distance away. "We need to talk." I didn't respond. I just quickened my pace toward my car. "Sarah May." Now he was running after me. "We know you were at the barn last night." I reached my car and got in quickly, locking the doors. Jake knocked on the driver's side window. "You can't run forever," he shouted. "This town isn't big enough for you to hide." I started the car and sped off, watching in the rearview mirror as Jake spoke on the phone, probably telling Tommy and Michael he found me. Driving toward lawyer Martinez's office, one thing became very clear: the war had officially begun. And this time, I had ammunition to fight. Leave your comments. Do you think Sarah May should have confronted Jake right there? And who else do you think is involved in this conspiracy? At the city council meeting, I exposed the entire conspiracy, and my brother's reaction was even better than I imagined. If you've been following this journey with me, you know I discovered I'm a millionaire, that my brothers have been stealing from me for years, and that the public prosecutor himself is involved in the conspiracy. This is the final chapter, folks, and I promise the revenge is going to be epic. Leave a like if you're ready to see justice done. 2 weeks passed since the encounter with Jake outside the bank. 2 weeks I used to meticulously prepare the complete destruction of the empire of lies my brothers had built. Attorney Rebecca Martinez was exactly what I needed: a woman in her 40s, dark hair tied in a tight bun, and eyes that sparkled when she saw injustice. When I showed her all the documents my father had kept, she stayed silent for 5 full minutes, just flipping through the evidence. "Sarah May," she finally said, taking off her glasses and looking me in the eyes, "this is not just fraud. This is a criminal conspiracy involving document forgery, money laundering, and public official corruption. Your brothers could face 10 to 20 years in prison." "And what about Prosecutor Clayton?" "Oh, he's going to lose much more than his freedom. He'll lose his career, his reputation, and he'll probably face a federal investigation. Public prosecutor corruption is a federal crime." It was exactly what I wanted to hear. During those 2 weeks, Rebecca and I built a watertight case. We hired a private investigator who confirmed all the frauds. We obtained sworn statements from courthouse employees who had been pressured to process suspicious documents. And the cherry on top, we discovered that Clayton had received nearly $100,000 in donations for his political campaign, all coming from the mysterious Whitmore Holdings LLC. But I didn't just want legal justice. I wanted public justice. That's why I decided to show up at the City Council's monthly meeting. It was a Thursday evening, and the small auditorium at City Hall was as full as it always was during council meetings. Farmers, merchants, retirees, the whole Tulsa community was there to discuss municipal budgets and local issues. I arrived 5 minutes before the start, wearing a navy blue suit I had bought specifically for the occasion. I wanted to look professional, confident, imposing. I sat in the third row, where I had a clear view of the entire room. In the front row, I recognized several important people from the city. And in the middle of them, wearing an expensive suit and chatting animatedly with other local politicians, was Prosecutor Richard Clayton. He didn't see me enter. Mayor Davidson began the meeting with routine matters. Budget for rural road repairs. Renewal of the trash collection contract. Approval of a new traffic sign on Main Street. Boring things that would soon be forgotten. After 40 minutes of bureaucratic discussions, the mayor asked, "Does anyone have a new matter to bring before the council?" I raised my hand. "Yes, ma'am." "My name is Sarah May Whitmore," I said, standing up. "And I would like to speak about corruption and fraud in our city." And absolute silence fell over the auditorium. All eyes turned to look at me. I saw Clayton's face turn as pale as a ghost. "Miss Whitmore," said the mayor, clearly uncomfortable, "this meeting is for official municipal matters." "I believe that public prosecutor corruption is an official municipal matter," I interrupted, keeping my voice calm and clear. "Especially when it involves millions of dollars in stolen property." Whispers started spreading throughout the room. Clayton shifted nervously in his seat. "Miss, I suggest you seek the appropriate channels for," the mayor began. "The appropriate channels are compromised," I said, pulling a folder from my bag. "Because Public Prosecutor Richard Clayton is personally involved in a fraud scheme that has been going on for 5 years. Clayton stood up abruptly. "This is a very serious accusation and completely baseless. I demand that." "You demand what?" I asked, looking directly at him. "That I stay silent like you stayed silent about the forged deeds? That I ignore the illegal property transfers like you ignored?" The door to the auditorium opened, and Jake, Tommy, and Michael rushed in. They must have been alerted by someone that I was there. Perfect. I had been waiting for them. "Sarah May!" Jake shouted, walking down the center aisle. "Stop this ridiculous theatrics." "Ridiculous theatrics?" I repeated, smiling. "Is that what you call exposing crimes?" The whole room was silent now, as if they were watching a movie. I could see phones being raised, people recording. "Folks," I said, addressing the audience, "I'd like to tell you a story about how 3 men stole their own sister's inheritance, forged legal documents, and bought a public prosecutor to cover up their crimes." "She's lying!" Tommy shouted. "She has no proof of anything." I smiled and opened my folder. "No proof?" I asked, pulling out a stack of papers. "Here's a copy of my father's real will, dated 6 months before his death, leaving me a quarter of the Whitmore farm." I held the document up for everyone to see. "Here are the bank statements showing oil royalties being diverted into my brother's personal accounts." More papers in the air. "And here," I said, pulling out the last document, "are the campaign donations Prosecutor Clayton received from the ghost company Whitmore Holdings LLC, the same company my brothers used to steal my property." Clayton was visibly sweating now. These donations were completely legal. Legal donations from a company that doesn't officially exist? I asked. "A company registered with forged documents from the very courthouse where you have influence?" The crowd started murmuring loudly. Words like scandal and corruption echoed throughout the auditorium. Michael tried a different approach. "Sarah May, you don't understand the family business. Dad wanted the 3 of us to take care of the farm because you're men?" I interrupted. "Because a woman can't take care of land and cattle?" I pulled another paper from the folder. "Maybe you want to know that during the 15 years I spent away from Oklahoma, I worked for Lone Star Petroleum, one of the largest oil companies in Texas. I managed royalty contracts worth tens of millions of dollars. I oversaw drilling operations in 3 different states." Dramatic pause. "And I discovered that our little family farm is sitting on one of Oklahoma's largest untapped oil reserves. That no one knew. Not even my brothers. What you stole from me wasn't just a few $1,000,000, I continued. You stole rights to a reserve worth more than 50 million. Jake, Tommy, and Michael were now looking utterly shocked. They really didn't know the true value of the property. "And the best part," I said, smiling, "is that I have all the legal rights, all the evidence, and $3 million to fight you in court for as long as it takes." Clayton tried to discreetly slip toward the exit, but Mrs. Henderson, 70 years old and one of the most respected matriarchs in the city, blocked his path. "Where do you think you're going, prosecutor?" she asked with a firm voice. "I think you have some questions to answer." It was then that the door to the auditorium opened again, and 3 men in suits walked in. Rebecca Martinez was with them. "FBI," announced the man in front, showing his ID. "Richard Clayton, you're under arrest for corruption, fraud, and conspiracy." The room exploded with exclamations and applause. As Clayton was being handcuffed, Jake tried one last desperate move. "You don't understand. Sarah May is just a resentful bitch trying to destroy our family." I turned to him with the calmest expression I could muster. "Jake," I said, my voice echoing through the silent auditorium, "family are people who love you, protect you, support you. You three are just thieves sharing my DNA." The FBI also approached my brothers. Apparently, Rebecca had handed all our evidence to the federal authorities a week before. "Jake, Tommy, and Michael Whitmore, you're under arrest for fraud, document forgery, and money laundering." Watching my brothers being handcuffed was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. Not for revenge, but for justice. As they were taken away, Jake shouted one last thing. "You'll regret this, Sarah May. You'll regret this." "The only thing I regret," I replied, "is that it took me 15 years to come back home." 6 months later. I'm writing this final from my office at the Whitmore farm. Yes, I recovered the entire property, plus compensation for the years of stolen royalties. My brothers were sentenced to 12 years in prison each. Clayton lost his license to practice law and got 15 years. I've turned part of the farm into a sanctuary for rescued horses. I hired 15 local employees, including Jennifer Morrison, who is now my manager. Old Pete Morrison came back to work here. At 80 years old, he said he wanted to see justice done on the property he worked his whole life. The oil reserve I discovered is being responsibly developed, with some profits going to educational programs in the rural community of Oklahoma. But the best part? I found a photo on my father's desk. It was of us both when I was 10, riding horses in the sunset. On the back, he had written, "For Sarah May, my bravest daughter. Never give up on fighting for what's right." I never gave up, Dad. And I never will. To those of you who follow this journey until the end, your origin doesn't determine your destiny. Your blood family may disappoint you, but you can build a chosen family that truly loves you. And more importantly, never let anyone steal what rightfully belongs to you. Sometimes, revenge is simply doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Leave your comments sharing your own stories of overcoming. You're stronger than you think. And subscribe to the channel, because this is just the beginning of my story in Oklahoma. Actually, there is no ending, only new beginnings. Sarah May Whitmore, owner of Whitmore Farm.